just as we did with the government, I wanted to start by getting your response and Labour's response to those horrific scenes in North East London yesterday, where a 14-year-old boy tragically lost his life. What was your reaction?
This is a terrible and tragic incident, and I'm sure it has, shocked the whole community. And my thoughts are with the victim's family. This is a terrible and devastating incident. I think it's right now the police are allowed to do the necessary work on this. We know that there's an active investigation underway into exactly what has taken place, and it's essential that continues.
Kemi Badenoch, who was with us earlier, as it related to Sadiq Khan, given that, of course, this is in London, said that he was not taking knife crime seriously, and she even suggested that in the past, before this event, he's been laughing at the idea of knife crime elevating in London. What's your response to that?
This was a tragic and awful, awful incident. Sadly, we have seen rising levels of knife crime across our country. I've certainly seen that in my community in the North East. I know that Sadiq Khan has been making progress in tackling knife crime in London, but I'm not sure, given how close this is to this terrible incident, that really it's the time to be seeking to make political points around this. I think we need to focus on making sure the police have got the support that they need, and that where there are lessons that we need to learn, if those are identified, then we take action on it.
Do you think that tackling crimes of this sort should be top of the agenda, both for whoever is London Mayor come Friday and whoever's occupying number 10 next year?
I mean, sadly, this is a nationwide issue, and communities across the country have been affected by knife crime and by serious violence. And what we know is that the government have been slow to act where it comes to cracking down on knife crime. We've been pushing for further legislation, for further measures to stop young people in particular having access to knives and to take action on violent crime overall. That sadly isn't what we've seen happen. There is a much bigger question around all of this, but I'm not sure, as I say, given the proximity to this terrible incident, now there's the time really for making this about individuals in this way. I think we have to be focused on the police response, making sure they've got what they need, and thinking about the victim, their family, and the wider community, who I'm sure will be devastated by what has taken place and will be really shocked.
I wanted to move on and talk about what your party trailed today. And for 2 days in a row now, it's focused on pensions versus the idea of national insurance contribution cuts, which, of course, the government has done a couple of recently. And it's just interesting to see Labour pushing this particular issue. And it raises the big picture question as to whether, as we approach a general election, Labour wants to say that it cares more about older people out of work than younger people in work, given that, of course, national insurance cuts do benefit those people in work.
So I don't think it's about one or the other. We've got a really big plan for how we want to make sure that working people are better off, how they have more rights in the workplace. But alongside that, it is incredibly important that people in retirement have dignity and have a good standard of living. The last Labour government made big progress around lifting pensioners out of poverty. But what I'm really worried about is that in the last budget, the Tories opened up a £46 billion black hole where they said they intended to abolish national insurance. More than 50 days on, we've had nothing from the government about how they're going to fund it, how they're going to pay for it, how all of that will work. So we are drawing attention to this reckless approach the government are taking. I think pensioners have got every cause to be concerned about what the government has in store. And ministers should be coming clean with the British people about how they are going to pay for this. We saw before under Liz Truss what happens when you have this kind of cavalier approach, and it is just not good enough for ministers to set out this kind of bombshell with no plan, no detail around any of it.
Of course, they would say it's a sort of long-term target as opposed to a short-term policy. Would you, though, like to see some kind of further cut in either income taxes or national insurance contributions for workers over a Labour 5 years in government?
Well, under the Conservatives, we've seen tax rise after tax rise on working people, and I don't want to see working people paying more and more in the way that they have done under the Conservatives. I want working people to have more money in their pockets and choices about how they support their families. But let's be clear, the government can't go around saying, don't worry, it's a long-term ambition. There is absolutely no way on earth they would let us get away with making that kind of claim. And there is no way on earth that Rachel Reeves, our Shadow Chancellor, would let me come on your programme this morning, set out a huge spending commitment of that kind without being clear about how we will fund it. That is the difference between us and the Conservatives. We're clear that our plans have to be fully funded, fully costed, and that fiscal responsibility is at the heart of all of that. The Tories, however, have abandoned that ground, and that £46 billion bombshell is a ticking time bomb, really.
Wanted to touch on George Galloway's Workers' Party and clearly announced a lot of candidates yesterday, including the former cricketer Monty Panesar. Is the Labour Party worried about the threat from the left in a general election?
I'm worried about the kind of division that people like Galloway cause in our communities. And we are focused on making sure we bring our communities together, that we're a party that acts in the interests of the whole country.
And just finally, local elections tomorrow. What does victory look like? Are expectations quite high for your party going into these local elections that it might not feel like a victory on Friday?
No votes have been cast in terms of people going to the polling stations tomorrow. We're fighting hard right across the country for every vote. I've been, the length and breadth of England making the case for the change that Labour would deliver. What I'll be looking for is whether we make progress in those key areas for the general election and how we will use that as a springboard to win back parliamentary seats and to form a majority. But tomorrow people have got a choice. Do they want a changed Labour Party ready to transform our country, or do they want more chaos, this reckless, cavalier approach that the Conservatives are taking? And that's the pitch that we'll be taking to voters right on the doorsteps tomorrow.